Greetings, everyone. My name is Cedric Isaac, and most of my friends call me Ced, but you could just call me Sense. I am a college instructor under the College of Business and Accountancy of the Ateneo de Naga University, and I am also an MBA grad student of the same institution. I am a member of the college's management committee as a university hotels coordinator, as well as a practicum advisor for tourism management students. As much I am very much interested in multicultural diversity and sustainable development for both space and society. If you are not aware, the Ateneo de Naga University is a premier Jesuit university in the region of Bicol here in the Philippines. You can see the address and the global positioning coordinates here in the slides. Furthermore, in the pictures presented through the slides, you can see the iconic facade of the university, the four pillars, which represents the four C's: competence, Christ-centeredness, compassionate commitment to change, and conscience, alongside a picture of the iconic and refreshing meteor garden. My paper is entitled Makibeki, Wag Matakot: Gender Inclusivity Climate and Workplaces in Naga City. In the era of globalization, the phenomenon of workplace diversity is fast growing. People are a company's most valuable asset, and rational and sensitive managers must understand this. They must also understand that for a company to flourish, its personnel must act in ways that go above and beyond what's required of them at work. Nevertheless, despite proof of the benefits of diversity, LGBTQIA plus people continue to experience prejudice in various contexts, including the workplace. Abuse and violence are still committed against people with different soju. Subtle jabs to severe kinds of shame and abuse from their families, neighbors, institutions, and even government agencies are among them. For instance, owing to prejudice in the workplace, some LGBT persons incur lost economic possibilities. Other examples include the application of workplace standards that require individuals to dress in accordance with their sex to which they were born as a basis for selection, and outright rejection instead of employing them regardless of their soju. It is important to note, however, that studies have shown that most successful companies usually have humanitarian and highly inclusive climates, and by extensions, policies and work philosophies. In fact, it has been exhibited that the existence of gender diversity in the workplace correlates to greater workplace happiness and overall company productivity. It was found that when HRM invests in workers in settings with significant gender diversity, productivity soars. Thus, to support this, it is crucial for HRM managers to recognize several approaches to assessing each employee's welfare and to offer them support and assistance that they can value both internally and externally. Most especially because making sincere efforts to ensure employee welfare has a variety of positive effects on not only the workers themselves, but also on the workplace as a whole and the entirety of the business organization. The objectives of our study is as follows. It is important to first understand the gender inclusivity climate of various workplaces in Naga City and identify the factors that affect the quality of the gender inclusivity climate of a workplace, and then translate the gathered data as recommendations for improving workplace gender inclusivity climates and business organizations in Naga City. An essential part of managing organization is their human resources. Their effectiveness and output directly influence organizational effectiveness. Church and Rotolo proved how it is not only important for policies to exist in the workplace, but management must ensure these policies, which are driven by data, are implemented proactively with a heart to make the organization truly inclusive and diverse. As such, I identified that in addition to the existence of inclusion policies and practices, it is vital to determine if all facets of the workplace environment comply with the spirit of those policies by having its stakeholders evaluate their qualitative experience in their respective workplaces. These evaluations are then essential in reforming approach and initiatives of management to the nuances of their company's workplace culture and status quo. By design, this is a qualitative study as it seeks to investigate how LGBTQIA plus employees in Naga City experience inclusion at work. And the location of the study is at Naga City, as it is one of the most developed and diverse cities in southern Luzon, as it is home to many businesses and is highly regarded by investors. It is swarmed by various investments, by outside businesses, and residents of Metro Naga and neighboring municipalities gain employment opportunities and get to interact with one another, creating a very diverse environment for organization workplaces. The respondents are comprised of 12 LGBTQIA plus members who are currently employed by different companies in Naga City. Even at work, these respondents are honest about their gender and sexual orientation. They comprise individuals with various positions in their respective businesses and are comprised of people of different ages and genders. These respondents have been employed by their present firm for at least 1 year. The data was collected through a focus group discussion from participants by sharing their experiences as members of the LGBTQIA plus community and discussing the specifics of their ideal workplace. The data was then examined to identify recurrent trends and highlight crucial facts businesses can utilize to further their gender inclusivity policies and practices. I then pinpointed the crucial elements mentioned during data collection and supported the conclusions using thematic analysis, to which I draw recommendations for the firm in order to improve their HRM policies and practices for improving gender inclusivity practice. After the focus group discussion, I have identified 4 key factors that affect our workplace's gender inclusivity plan. They are the following: SOGI training and education, gender inclusive policies, consistent and efficient management of harassment and discrimination claims, and finally, the management of micro inequities and subtle discrimination. Based on the FGD, all the business organizations respondents belong to provide optional but completely free SOGI education webinars and celebrate Pride Month each year. Some even have gender-neutral bathrooms on site. Yet despite this, it has been highlighted that there is no set of formal policies that can be found in the respective company handbooks that pertain specifically to protecting or upholding the rights and privileges of LGBTQIA plus communities. A respondent has even mentioned that there are anti-discrimination policies in place, and violations such as denying someone a career opportunity because of sexual orientation and offhanded comments, even if done jokingly, are being taken seriously. She mentioned that it has been implemented properly throughout the years. However, in the focus group discussion, it has only been mentioned that that anti-discrimination policy is based on the current laws of the Philippines, and the company follows laws that prevent discrimination against all only based on that. However, there are no specific policies that are nuanced to be able to cater to the more sensitive circumstances and other possible scenarios being experienced by LGBTQIA plus employees. One example is detailed by a respondent wherein a superior from another department harassed her, a trans woman, for cross-dressing, labeling her as both indecent and unprofessional when there is no existing dress code stipulation within their company. Its handbook. The respondent stated that other coworkers even come into their work wearing only boxers and sliders, which is why she felt truly discriminated. When the situation was raised to HR, the office was very vague about how they handled it and subtly sided with the superior by telling the respondent to give in to the superior, whom they called old and conservative. The respondent believes this was caused by the fact that no specific stipulations in their company handbook help uplift the welfare of LGBTQIA plus employees. In other situations, a respondent also felt that LGBTQIA plus employees were discriminated against based on their gender. She mentioned that some workmates are being ridiculed and judged for cross-dressing at work. The respondents have discussed and agreed that most of their social-related initiatives to educate their workforce are limited and performative for the appearance of it, as these initiatives have a minimal effect on changing prejudicial attitudes that were present in some workplaces. In fact, it was mentioned that these SOGI talks provide contrary effects. Number one, that it amplifies respect and caution from coworkers who already exercise respect, but exaggerate prejudicial attitudes from those coworkers who give insensitive remarks about LGBTQIA plus workers. In fact, the respondents believe that some company policies are non-inclusive or purported inclusive policies, but are only vaguely implemented. This includes maternity and paternity leaves. The respondents believe that not extending these privileges to transitioning LGBTQIA plus employees is derogatory, as it technically excludes them as they do not conform to the technical eligibility on those leaves. They mentioned that these existing policies are exclusive to cisgendered, as it only accepts women who undergo pregnancy or men married to pregnant women. Furthermore, the FGD highlighted how improvements must start from HR itself. They mentioned that in addition to the lack of gender inclusive policies, the practicing compliance of inclusion and the prevention of exclusion in the form of harassment and discrimination should start with the members of HRM department. They mentioned how claims and complaints regarding gender discrimination and harassment are not very prevalent. This could mean that the workplace does not experience discrimination. However, the FGD has provided examples in which there are instances of harassment and subtle forms of discrimination. As such, the FGD has confirmed that despite the occurrences of discrimination, LGBTQIA have no recourse for taking offenders accountable or for protecting themselves, as the institution does not offer systematized and formal support for them. The FGD constantly highlights how any form of respect LGBTQIA employees receive is because those employees who are respectful of their SOGI were already educated on the concept beforehand. Moreover, that the lack of a proactive and consistent SOGI education initiative in the workplace is detrimental to shaping an inclusive workplace environment for them. In light of this, I identify that while certain practices advocate for the welfare and inclusion of LGBTQIA employees in Naga City, not many firms conform to this standard. At best, large corporations conduct performative attempts at gender inclusivity, and at worst, several smaller companies do not invest in any type of gender inclusive initiative. Furthermore, the study has shown that despite the desire to be inclusive, the concept was not fully permeated into organizational culture, or at the very least, the ideal concept of a realistic organizational culture, as exhibited by the lack of nuanced gender inclusive policies in the company handbooks and the lack of consistent and efficient management of various forms of discrimination. All of this affects the overall gender inclusivity climate in Naga City, and I can conclude that the gender inclusivity climate is not as prevalent yet as it could be. As such, I recommend the following courses of action for firms in Naga City. Number one, to stay updated on social. Understanding better how different HR strategies may help employees feel included is important. Numerous diversity management and inclusion strategies, including the hiring and advancing of women, queer people, people of color, and ethnic minorities, diversity management training, and affinity groups within the company, all influence how inclusively the organization is seen by its employees and its clients. As such, it is imperative that companies remain up to date on the currently available tools, techniques, activities, and promotions they can utilize to foster gender equity, inclusion, and diversity in their workforces. Moreover, it is important to note that different times have different values. Different places may have different cultures. Different employees may have different needs and circumstances, and these differences require the company to provide different answers. Furthermore, I suggest incorporating psychological ownership to increase implementation of policies and practices. A profusion of policies that support equitable opportunity and treatment inside the company is, after all, very vital in achieving a gender inclusive climate. However, more than the mere existence of policies is needed for a long-lasting beneficial effect. Employees and their proactive adherence and implementation is usually needed for this to be effective. Next, I also recommend provide system-driven support for transgender employees. Because while companies cannot always solve every problem, there are clear steps they can do to improve the quality of life of their trans employees. These includes making sure that all employees' genders and pronouns are included in HR systems and allowing them to change documents and records, especially for those who are transitioning or are already undergone transition, and by providing supporting leave for coworkers who are transitioning, and finally allowing employees to feel restrooms they feel comfortable. Furthermore, organizations should perform inclusive business development and policy. Business level plans and HR policies should be created or altered to maintain the inclusion and respect of queer workers. For instance, choices about staff development, deployment, and relocation should be made after thorough engagement with all the relevant parties, especially those for whom the decisions are being made. Everyone will have a sense of inclusion in their workplace as a result. Similarly, important organizational choices should not be made at the expense of an employee's dignity, such as making them go through institutionally held activities that may be shameful or degrading. I also recommend the concept that prevention is better than cure. According to Church, inclusion entails a type of values-driven humanistic change. And the pursuit of inclusion should go beyond the business justification for investment because it is simply the right thing to do, regardless of whether it is good for business. Furthermore, I recommend business organizations to inculcate zero tolerance for discrimination on all levels of the organization. A high-stress work environment, abusive supervision, reification, incivility, and bullying are a few examples of factors that HR managers need to aggressively address to prevent employees from feeling as though they are socially excluded from the workplace and that their dignity is endangered. Complaints made by LGBTQIA plus members must be taken seriously, and any allegations made against superiors for harassment and discriminations be handled objectively. Furthermore, it would be helpful to specify particular policies and specific punishments in the official documentation, such as handbooks, contracts, and what constitutes as a form of harassment or discrimination, and how it will be dealt with, so that further scenarios of any kind of discrimination or harassment happening can hold the offenders accountable and provide LGBTQIA plus employees with the means of protecting themselves and the confidence of reporting those cases. Next, I recommend putting an end to inappropriate behavior. Companies must take action to stop and handle degrading conduct and microaggressions. For instance, they may provide company-wide conscious inclusion training to help staff members spot and react to improper conduct. Along with the appropriate usage of pronouns and names, this should also include support for understanding and sensitivity toward transgender and gender nonconforming coworkers. Companies may also establish secure reporting avenues to look into and address improper behavior. And finally, leadership must set an example for proper conduct by taking swift and obvious action against inappropriate behavior to discourage it and normalize culture against it. Should the recommendations be implemented by firms' HRM offices, the following outcomes are most likely to occur: greater individual employee productivity, better employee mental health, lesser workplace conflict, resulting to higher likelihood of harmonious working environments, lesser employee turnover, most specifically of LGBTQIA plus employees, resulting to lesser onboarding costs, resulting into the retention and attraction of talents, and greater and improved employee morale and productivity. The references for the study are as follows. You may check them as I flash them in the screen for your perusal. A gender inclusive workplace climate is crucial for creating a positive and productive work environment. It is important to recognize, however, that gender inclusivity is not just about creating a safe space for individuals, promoting gender equality and challenging gender stereotypes. I realized that a gender inclusive workplace during my research is important for promoting diversity and inclusion, and it is helpful in reducing discrimination and harassment, improving employee morale and engagement, and attracting and retaining top talent, thereby increasing customer satisfaction and increasing the chances of success for the business organizations. For promoting gender inclusivity in the workplace, we can create a more positive and productive work environment for all employees. That is all for my research. Stay kind, everyone.